Hi. My Sunday night movie, which I watched over the last couple of weeks, was Billy Liar, the John Schlesinger film based on the book by Keith Waterhouse, and starring Tom Courtney and Julie Christie. It's a film that started quite slowly to me, and I felt that it was missold because I was under the impression it was a comedy, particularly since it was later developed into a sitcom starring Jeff Raw. But it's the story of I've forgotten his last name already. Billy Porter? Preston? Not Billy Preston. Young Billy, who is 19 years old. He works as a clerk at an undertaker's, and he has big dreams about going out and being a writer for a comedy star, and he escapes into a fantasy world when he's bored, where he's the general in charge of the armies of the country of Ambrosia, and he's a habitual liar. He has two fiancées, he is forever telling grand stories about his plans. He has also embezzled money from his employer because he was supposed to send out calendars to their various clients, but he simply put the calendars in his wardrobe at home and kept all the postage money for himself. And now he's been found out. And over the course of a single day, we find Billy being forced to confront the fruits of all his lies and all his fantasizing over the years. So it's a film that's not as funny as I'd expected. It's quite bitter in a way. But I found it, over the course of the movie as it developed, increasingly engaging as it stopped being about all these hilarious lies Billy tells and about the consequences of his dishonesty and his deceit. That the two girls who he'd been engaged to find out, and it turns into a brawl. That his boss at the funeral parlour, Mr. Shadrach, won't let him quit to go and work in London as a scriptwriter until he's paid back the money for the postage. And when he finally meets the comedian who he's supposed to be writing for, who happens to be in town opening a supermarket, the comedian doesn't fall over himself to give him a job. He gives him some very polite and well-meaning advice about working hard and contacting agents, and you can, if your material's good, you can really do it, Billy. But Billy expects to get offered a job straight away, and he isn't. There is the prospect of escape, taunted by the arrival back in town of Liz, an old girlfriend of Billy's, who somehow manages just to see through everything, and she's the one person to whom Billy can be completely honest. And he owns up about his lies and his fantasies about Ambrosia. And she finds it charming. She sees that he does have potential, and they make plans to run away together. But ultimately Billy realises that if he runs away from his problems, he's just carrying that with him as baggage. He has to stay behind and deal with the fallout of all his lies. And the film ends on this bittersweet note of Billy walking home, imagining himself followed by the armies of Ambrosia as he walks back up the hill towards his house in the dead of night. It's a sad story. It's a cautionary tale, perhaps, of a working-class British Walter Mitty, that big dreams are all very well, but one mustn't allow reality to be overwhelmed. You still have to deal with things on a day-to-day basis. Someone has to go and put the rubbish out eventually. So I found it a very engaging, very well-acted, very well-written film. It's something that takes its time, and it's definitely not a comedy. It's funny in places, but it's much more of a drama with a slightly humorous edge. But overall, I thought it was very good, and I would recommend it very highly as an example of the British New Wave of the early 60s, the angry young man screenwriter, because it was a play before it was a film as well as being a book. But it's also, I think, just a really terrific film with a great performance by Tom Courtney, and yes, I thought it was very good indeed.